Thank you, Presiding Officer. I am grateful for the opportunity to contribute to this Stage 1 debate on the Gender Representation on Public Boards Scotland Bill. I have to say I was somewhat disappointed to read in the Equalities and Human Rights Committee's report that the committee's two Conservative members, Jamie Green and Annie Wells, do not support the general principles of this bill. No, them being from a party whose Scottish branch office has more MPs named David than it does female MPs, it is perhaps hardly surprising. I only raise this point because I had hoped that this debate would be a moment when Parliament, if I'd like to make some progress, I had hoped this debate would be a moment when Parliament would speak as one. But alas, we must once again make the case for the principle of gender balance in public and civic life and the case for action to achieve that. This being the situation, I will focus my remarks on the broader context of why this bill is needed and why it should progress. Presiding Officer, it is a fitting time to be discussing balanced gender representation in civic life. Next year will mark the 90th anniversary of the Representation of the People Equal Franchise Act, which gave the vote to all women over the age of 21. This brought parity with the terms enjoyed by men since the Representation of the People Act 1918, which had only enfranchised women over the age of 30 who met a property qualification. Prior to that point, women had been explicitly prohibited from voting in statute. In the period between these two acts of the interwar period, Scotland and the UK saw an increasing number of women enter politics and public life, including the first female MP and renowned figures at municipal level such as Mary Barber, who, incidentally, was born in Kilbarchan in my constituency of Renfrewshire South. Despite these early advances, progress has, since, at times, been painfully slow. For example, between 1918 and 2015, a total of 400 women were elected to the House of Commons, while in the 2015 UK general election alone, 459 men were elected. Women account for barely 1 in 4 members of the House of Lords. In the century since the first women were enfranchised, all but 2 out of 19 different UK Prime Ministers have been male. Out of 35 Foreign Secretaries, only 1 woman has been Britain's top diplomat. And of 40 Home Secretaries, women account for 3. 3 also being the same number of male Home Secretaries in that period named Sir John. No woman has ever been head of the UK Home Civil Service, and there has only ever been 1 female Speaker of the House of Commons. Presiding Officer, I highlight all of this because until May of last year, the power to enact the provisions of this bill rested at Westminster. Had the people of Scotland not elected SNP governments committed to bringing powers to this Parliament, there would have been no Scotland Act 2016, and we would now not have the opportunity to propose these measures, which, if enacted, will ensure that our public bodies better reflect those they serve. The Tories' failure to support these measures is sadly now not surprising. After years of rebuffing calls for greater devolution and demanding that the Scottish Government use its existing powers, the Conservatives now want us to sit on our hands. Just as with powers over taxation, the Tory position is to do as London says. And let me say this, Presiding Officer, it is no wonder opinion polls now show him trailing in 3rd place. Whether it's the racist and bigots they deem fit to be councillors or the mindless marionettes of your front bench in this place, it's clear that the people of Scotland are seeing through the Tory charade. Presiding Officer, the moral case for equal gender representation on public boards is unimpeachable. That in itself is enough justification for this bill. However, there is also a powerful business case. Research commissioned by the Scottish Government on greater diversity for private boards highlighted benefits, and I quote, including lower labour turnover, higher levels of commitment and motivation amongst employees, improved reputation, better understanding of customer needs and more flexibility and creativity within the business from the increased range of perspectives, skills and capabilities. Presiding Officer, this research speaks to the broader international evidence regarding the negative impact on imbalance of gender power has on a range of equalities outcome. This is something referred to by Engender in their Equal Voice, Equal Power publication of last year, which states that Having women around the table changes the substance and outcomes of discussions. Increased numbers of women in leadership positions enriches perspectives and increases prospects for public gender-sensitive services. Representative public boards also contribute to the challenging gender stereotypes and perceptions around public authority, and send an important message to young women and men within their respective fields. Presiding Officer, that point regarding changing the substance and outcomes of discussions is so incredibly important, because the substance and outcomes can all be improved by gender-balanced representation. Perhaps that explains why the gender-balanced Cabinet of the Scottish Government functions with such efficacy and competency compared to Theresa May's Cabinet of Chaos, where women make up barely a quarter, with just 6 out of 23 members, and which is dominated by the grasping, fevered male egos of Johnson, Fox and Gove. Presiding Officer, in concluding, I wish to reiterate my support for the general principles of this bill, and I commend the Scottish Government for bringing it to this chamber. I also wish to recognise the work of the Equalities and Human Rights Committee and the important points raised in this report. As with all bills at stage 1, this is a work in progress, and I trust that the Scottish Government will continue to engage as thoroughly with stakeholders at stage 2 as they have done to date. Presiding Officer, I encourage colleagues from across the chamber, including Conservatives, because it's not too late to repent on this, to back this bill this evening, and I look forward to its progression.